Hi, everyone.
Hi, and sorry, just before we get started, just wanted to give a little housekeeping. So you all should have access to new previously undisclosed documents from Meta, which were produced in response to a letter that the senators sent to the company with their colleagues in November. If you don't, please come find me. I'll get them to you. These are under a 6 a.m. Wednesday embargo, and so we'll plan to start this availability with a broader discussion focused on tomorrow's hearing and the Kids Online Safety Act. Once there are no more questions on those broader items, we're happy to turn it to the conversation about the documents that will be under embargo. Thank you so much for being understanding of this. And then if you have any questions, just let us know. And I'll turn it over to the senators now.
Great.
You're going to tape this?
Yes, and
Okay.
I'm capturing some voice.
And I want to thank you all for being here. As you know, we have worked on the Kids Online Safety Act and put effort into protecting children in the virtual space for several years. And many of you have covered the hearings that we have done. Some of you have met with the parents that have come out in support of this legislation. And we have continued to work with these groups. We've continued to work with our colleagues, and as you all are aware, we have over 200 groups that are in support of this. We have almost half the Senate that is a co-sponsor on this legislation. And I was just told that we have a new endorsement from Microsoft that has just been released. Yes.
And I think the Microsoft endorsement is a sign of increasing and mounting momentum. There is no question that American parents and children want this kind of protective measure. I was with a group of high school students just yesterday, and for anybody who doesn't have kids that age and who may not already know about it, these kids are way smarter than we are. They know there is a problem with bullying, self-harm, eating disorders, and they're talking to their peers, their fellow students, about lives ruined and shattered, and sometimes lives lost. And what I will never forget is the parent who said to me, "How many more lives do we have to lose before you'll do something?" And I think the most effective part of these next 2 days, in fact, are going to be the parents who are going to be here, 40 to 50 of them. We're going to be meeting with them Thursday. Tomorrow's hearing is going to be about trust, really lack of trust, the loss of trust completely by social media. After all of these promises that we've heard, Mark Zuckerberg, 2018, Antigone Davis of Facebook, 2021, you'll hear more verbiage, to put it politely, but they need to be put on the spot, and all of them need to be asked, will you endorse Kids Online Safety Act? We can't rely on them anymore. They've lost trust.
And they've had the opportunity to do something, and we've continued to ask them to put in place regulations that would protect children and to design for safety and to give parents a portal where they can report bullying and self-harm videos and pedophiles and bad actors in the virtual space. And repeatedly, they have chosen not to step forward and do that. So as we've looked at it, as we've done hearings, it's become more and more evident that the way to put in place protections for children is to do it through legislation. And that's why we've continued to work on and push the Kids Online Safety Act, and we're so pleased to have the amount of support that is around this, because people want something done that is going to help protect kids in this space.
Happy to take your question.
Two, is there a simple explanation you could give to the parents concerned about why it's taken so long? You said half the Senate endorses it. That never happens. So why hasn't it passed yet? And two, why isn't someone from YouTube going to be there? YouTube's the most used social media platform according to Pew Research by quite a bit.
Yes.
Why not YouTube?
Well, that would be a question for Chairman Durbin and Ranking Member Graham. They're the ones that issued the invitations. And then why has it taken so long? Because big tech companies have an army of lobbyists and lawyers who have fought us every step of the way. And they don't want to see this, because when our children are online, they're the product. And addiction to social media is the business model. And the longer they have that child online, teens are spending 8.5 hours a day on their screen. Children are spending 5.5 hours a day. And they need these children and teens to be online for longer periods of time.
The army of lawyers and lobbyists has cost them, I won't say how many millions of dollars, but if they'd spent that money on protecting children, they could have saved lives. And the reason they are opposing it, often very skillfully and artfully, is that it interferes with their business model, which, as you know, is more eyeballs for longer periods of time, more addictively, means more advertising dollars. Very simple. And so we're really interfering with a cash cow that they are very reluctant to modify, even in the name of responsibility. And I think that the endorsements that we're receiving now reflect a growing awareness that the pressure is mounting and the momentum is increasing. And, we're not going into the documents right now, but I think what will be reflected in a lot of what you hear tomorrow is that they are before the Judiciary Committee only because of that mounting pressure from people like the parents that are going to be here.
I wanted to see, a number of these companies, Snapchat, TikTok, Meta, they have put additional protections in place for children within the last year. And I'm wondering how you interpret that. Is that at least some acknowledgement that these companies are trying to do the right thing? And if I can also follow up with the YouTube question, are you guys upset that YouTube won't be there tomorrow?
I don't think I would say I'm upset about it. We'll have other opportunities where we can pull them in. And it's always good to continue to get these companies in front of us. On our work on Commerce Committee last Congress, we had 5 different hearings with people from different companies. But these companies know that the time is changing on this, and that people are demanding that something be done to help protect children in the virtual space. And they know that they could have done something. We've had enough whistleblowers who have told us that they're aware. They knew that they should take this action, and they have chosen not to take that action.
I think that question is really an important one. And I'm not in a position to analyze the motives. You said that they're trying to do something. There are definitely people within these companies who want to do something to protect children. And some of them have left, they've quit. Others have become whistleblowers, they've cooperated. But the leadership of these companies has failed to adopt adequate protections. And by adequate protections, I mean basically safeguards and guardrails that will enable kids and parents to disconnect from the algorithms with tools that are understandable, refuse to acknowledge their responsibility to prevent and mitigate harm, and rejected ideas that they should be transparent on the algorithms. Those are the core principles of our bill. And until just within the past couple of weeks, none of these companies endorse those principles. Snap and Microsoft now have, and I would predict you there'll be others that will as well. But we cannot trust them. We cannot rely on them to do it on their own. That's why I say tomorrow's hearing is going to be about trust. It's going to show how they have utterly failed, despite their promises over the years, to do anything meaningful until now, when they are doing things that are less than fully adequate still.
Do you think it's performative what they've done
Yeah,
so
let's
far?
keep working around the room. I know we've got a lot of hands up. Go ahead, and then Aisha, do you.
Thank you. What are you planning to ask these executives tomorrow? Are you trying to hope to get some more public endorsements from KOSA? Obviously, you mentioned Snap recently announced support. Are you trying to get that public endorsement from the rest of these companies, put them on the spot tomorrow?
Well, yes. I'm going to be asking each of them to endorse Kids Online Safety Act. And one of them already has. I'm hopeful that others will, but I'm under no illusions that I'm going to go down the line and every one of them is going to say yes, yes, yes. But the American people ought to know, and we want to put them on record as to what their position is. And yes, I do think a lot of what they've done is performative so far. I think it is for public consumption so they can continue to appear at congressional hearings or at Chamber of Commerce meetings or at Rotary or wherever and have their set of talking points, just as Antigone Davis did when she testified in 2021, September of 2021. And, you know, the reality belies what she told us their commitment was.
Yes, and the social media platforms are professional can kickers. And they have chosen not to take an action. And I want to talk to them and hear from them. Why have they chosen not to take an action? Why have they chosen to create these platforms that are friendly to pedophiles and to drug dealers? Why have they chosen to push forward videos that cause self-harm or encourage eating disorders or encourage suicide? And why have they not put that money into protecting our children? I'm a mom and a grandmom, and it is heartbreaking to me to hear these stories. And, you know, very seldom do I go to one of the kids' activities and that I do not have a parent come up to me and ask me about this and ask me what we're going to do about this. Because in the physical space, there are laws in place that say you cannot take a child into a strip show or an X-rated movie, or you can't expose them to pornography. And we just met with the New Mexico AG. He had a great example on this that he used, because I brought up the issue of the laws in the physical space and how big tech has fought having those apply in the virtual space. And he said, you know, one of the things that he has used is if you had a big warehouse and there were stalls in that warehouse with drug dealers and pedophiles and people that were buying or selling children for sex or showing them pornographic material, that law enforcement would go in and they would padlock that place and they would carry the owners out in handcuffs. But in the virtual space, we don't see that happen, and children are losing their lives. Yeah, Aisha, you had something.
Yeah, just two quick questions. I know that you're going to ask each one of these CEOs if they support this bill, but what about Leader Schumer? Have you had any conversations with him about just bringing it to the fore, whether or not these guys are supportive or not? Congress can take action and move this forward. Have you had any talks with him? And then number two, I'm wondering, the big story in the last couple of days has been, of course, Taylor Swift saga on Twitter, on X, with the AI. The first immediate action that X took was to just block searching of Taylor Swift. They can't do that every single time there's, you know, an AI image of a celebrity or you or me. I mean, they're probably not going to do it for you or me. So does that just underline once again how sort of unprepared these social media sites are for problems that might arise like this?
I have discussed this bill with Senator Schumer on a number of occasions, and I can tell you very emphatically he is very, very supportive of measures to protect children online. I'm not going to speak for him to say he endorses this bill, but I think he is very intent on enabling a vote during this session of Congress on measures like the Kids Online Safety Act.
When it comes to the dealing with the deep fakes, if these social media companies would put as much money into AI that would protect these children online as they spend lobbying against this bill, which they've done for years, there would be the AI and the ability to protect from something like that. And of course, making certain that someone is not treated as Taylor Swift was treated through those deep fakes. But they would have the ability to do that and would be exercising that ability.
And Senator Hawley and I have a framework on AI that would in fact deal with deep fakes and impose obligations on AI companies to address these issues. Obviously in the political sphere, with President Biden's voice being deep-faked, brings home to all of us the dangers going into this November. But Senator Blackburn's absolutely right. You know, I go back a long way on this issue to a company called MySpace. None of you...
They may not remember MySpace.
I was going to say, I don't want to date myself
to quantify this
too much, but I remember saying to MySpace, you know, you ought to get rid of pornography. You can do this. And they said, oh, it's so difficult, technology. And I said, well, you know, maybe if you have to answer a complaint in court, I was AG at the time, maybe you'll feel differently about it. And sure enough, the technology was there to sort out pornographic images or words. You know, this stuff is possible. They have the smartest people on the planet doing this technology for them. And, you know, I think it's a matter of public record. In 2021, Facebook had 25,000 engineers, just engineers, 25,000 engineers. 90 of them were working on well-being, less than 1%. They were making tens of billions of dollars in profits. And the amount necessary to add more engineers to do more safety was a pittance compared to their total revenue. So they have it within their economic power to do it. And I would just say, and it goes back to the really bedeviling question, which a lot of people ask us, why hasn't it been done? You know, why haven't you gotten it done? These companies are so powerful. The men and women who will be before us tomorrow, I'm just going to speak, you know, for myself, together are extraordinarily powerful. I'm tempted to say more powerful than any of us singly in that room. Not more powerful than the United States Senate, but they command power economically. If you go into communities, the employees they have, the plants they have, the revenue that they make, the political influence they can exert is extraordinary. And some of these individuals are as powerful as anybody on the planet.
Now, Aisha, let me just add to Senator Coons, Klobuchar, Tillis, and I have the No Fakes Act, which deals with AI name, image, likeness, and the voice cloning, and just for reference.
And I'm a co-sponsor of it as well.
Yeah,
There are,
that's right.
this is not the only, I think that's a really important point
Yeah.
that Senator Blackburn makes. This is not the only, we're not saying this is a panacea.
Right.
The Kids Online Safety Act deals with a very discrete aspect of dangers on the internet. We want to protect kids.
Yeah. Let's get this out of the room. Yeah.
Hi, I know you spoke with me about being potentially open to dropping state AG enforcement because of pushback from LGBTQ groups about concerns that that content could be removed by conservative-leaning state AGs. Are you both open to removing that language and just making FTC the main enforcer in KOSA?
I think the best way to answer that question is we're in continuing conversations with a variety of stakeholders about specific provisions of the bill. There are some nips and tucks that we're going to make in response to concerns, very legitimate points that many of these groups have made, and we hope within a very short period of time to have a final version.
Would AG enforcement be part of the thing you're considering removing?
I think AG enforcement is an issue that we are discussing.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
If we could talk about the part of the bill that involves the independent audit, how is that going to work, and do you trust these companies to perform an audit that's independent?
Well,
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
An audit is an audit. It's done by someone who is responsible not just to the company, but to an independent authority. And I would say that audit will be done not by the company, but it will be,
A third-party group.
yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, we know that these companies have research. Arturo Behar was a good example of this, talking about the research that they had and the information he took to the leadership team there at Facebook, Meta, to say there is a real issue here. And then they chose not to do it. But they have had that internal research. We think for awareness, for parents and the public, to have these audits, third-party audits, would be something that would be helpful. And that ensures that these groups are living to, that they're conducting themselves in accordance with the law.
Yeah.
Bringing it back to AI just for a second, aside from deepfakes, AI might make that algorithm, those algorithms you're talking about, better. Better surface content for kids, keep them on the platforms more. With all of these CEOs basically telegraphing they're spending gobs of money on developing AI, is there a higher sense of urgency now to get something like the Kids Online Safety Act passed?
I think that if you went back and pulled Mark Zuckerberg's comments when he was before us, when I was in the House, 2017, 2018, he talked about how AI was going to solve all these problems and they were working on it. Well, AI has not solved the problems, and I would be curious as to what they've been spending their time on. They put a lot of attention and time into the metaverse, and why were they not working on these applications so that we could make certain children were protected?
I mean, think of it for a moment. How much has he invested in the metaverse? 10 billion? More? I mean, I don't know what the latest number is. What is the latest number?
I think at the end of this year, it'll probably be around double that.
About what?
Double that.
Double. Okay, $20 billion. Give me a fraction of it, and I'll make Meta 200 times safer. It's really a question of priorities. What do you think is important here? And without commenting on the value of that product, if you talk to parents who have lost children, and at this table, as some of you know, you've been there, we've had those parents share photographs of their children who've been lost. You know, how many billions of dollars is one of those children's lives worth? It's really about priorities, and that's part of what I hope we can showcase tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's about priorities and trust. And you're going to hear, as I mentioned earlier, you get a lot of tech gobbledygook and verbiage, but the American people are becoming too smart to continue to trust these people who do it on their own.
And we're not going to let them run the clock out.
Right.
That's right. We want some answers. Christiana, you had a question?
Thank you, Senator. Several of the CEOs testifying tomorrow are appearing for the first time, including ex-CEO Linda Yaccarino. Wondering if you could speak to any meetings you've had with her in particular and what your impressions have been of how responsive the company has been to any concerns you've raised.
Well, what's the old saying? There's only one opportunity to make a first impression, or something like that. This is her maiden voyage, and I think she will be the face and voice of X, and has the tremendous opportunity to really show some leadership. And they are much in need of it. So I think that what she says will be a test of credibility, and I hope that she'll address the problem in real terms and endorse the Kids Online Safety Act.
She's a mother and a grandmother, and my hope is that she's going to realize that there are issues with their platform, and there has not been an effort to address many of those issues. So we would like to see that done. And, of course, have the support for KOSA. Yeah. All right. Yes.
Some of the companies that will be testifying tomorrow have suggested that they plan to distance themselves from the larger, like the Metas and the YouTubes of the world. How do you plan to deal with that defense? And then second, can you just sort of address the voluminous number of lawsuits that have been filed against these companies, and does that help your case? And was there how did these lawsuits make this time different?
Well, you're talking to a former AG who, in some of my campaigns against me, has been accused of filing, quote unquote, too many lawsuits. I'm not a fan of lawsuits for their own sake, but the suits that have been filed seem to have a lot of merit. Many of them at least do. And they've brought to light a lot of new information. We will be talking tomorrow about documents that we obtained from the company, but some of these lawsuits have produced, the AG lawsuits, for example, have produced documents. And I want to give a shout out to the whistleblowers and to, quite honestly, the journalists who have been really dogged, and the whistleblowers courageous and strong in saying enough is enough. I don't know how we'll deal hypothetically with, I don't know exactly what the testimony of the others will be about Facebook, whether they're going to try to distance themselves. One of the advantages of having YouTube separately is it will give us a chance to focus on them. And, there's never enough time, I find at least, in one of these hearings to ask all the questions I want to do. And I'm struggling as we speak with how I'm going to use my 7 minutes. I'm hoping there'll be a second round. But I think we're going to work hard to hold their feet to the fire and avoid their distancing themselves if they have a real responsibility.
So you mentioned that Snap and Microsoft have endorsed KOSA, but at the same time, a lot of these companies are also providing funding to industry groups that are still trying to make cases against these things. Do you expect any shifts within these organizations regarding KOSA in the near term, or do you think this will be negligible?
One of the things we know companies are feeling is the pressure, because people are saying you've got to do something to help protect children in the virtual space, and they are tired of hearing them come up to Capitol Hill and, as I said, they're professional can kickers and just say the same things. So our hope is that tomorrow we can push on KOSA, we can push for them to agree to work with us and not to fight us on this, so that we can get some protections in place, and KOSA is the place to start with that.
I think that's a really important question, because the danger here is that these endorsements will be for show, not for real. They need to put their money where their mouth is. And we're going to be watching very closely. I have no reason to doubt the sincerity of Microsoft and Snap, but we're going to be verifying, as you know, the old saying, trust but verify. You know, you're absolutely right. They funded organizations that have raised all kinds of false narratives, really irresponsibly and unconscionably false narratives about this bill. And we'll see whether they are real.
Yeah. All right, you want to talk about the documents? We've got
We're-
about 5 minutes left.
Yeah, if you don't mind. I was wondering if you could just elaborate a little bit on why it's so important to get the endorsements of the companies on this bill, because, you know, is it just about clearing the field of lobbying? Because one might interpret their opposition as a show that it is a strong bill and something that really gets to the heart of their businesses.
And I think it is hopeful that they have finally decided to come to the table. And we have worked on this for years, and it's important to get something on the record. And this is the way KOSA and putting this Kids Online Safety Act on the books, getting this signed into law, would give that set of protections so that kids can deal with these algorithms. They can turn them off. Parents can report these bad actors. Kids can report the bad actors. There will be safety by default. Those are the foundational elements, and making certain that these companies finally come to the table and work with us on this is a good solid step.
And I just want to make clear, I don't mean to cast doubt on the sincerity of Microsoft and Snap. I've talked to the leadership of the companies, and I believe in their sincerity. And I think this statement from Microsoft is from Brad Smith, whom I've known since I sued Microsoft. Literally, I settled the case with him. So I've known him for a while, and I've dealt with him, and I have tremendous respect for him. I won't read it because you have it, but it's a strong and I believe sincere statement.
Yeah. Solid. All right. Caroline, were we going to touch on the documents?
If there are any questions, yes, and we can move over to that being embargoed, unless folks have any other questions about the hearing or the bill.
I guess. So how likely do you think it'll be for Congress to pass KOSA this year, or a package of kids' online safety bills? We know it's an election year, and what do you think they're likely?
I think that it is likely that we do it, because This is something that parents are talking about. It